Right. Okay, so some more people receiving Sujata Balaji. All right. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for sharing this. As I mentioned, okay, I also see listener Nageshwar Kumar, then learner Pradeep, sorry. Okay. All right. So as we have seen, we have people who have chosen different states of mind which would help them maximize the time here. And with that, we get started. All right. The topic for today's conversation is about emotional intelligence, right? And we say emotional intelligence for leaders. Now, what is so specific about leaders? Why is it more important? Why is it especially important for leaders, right? So when I say leader, we are not talking about a title here. We're talking about people who have impact on people, who are holding a certain responsible positions where they impact people, their decisions impact people, they lead people, they manage people, they develop people. So all of you in your own fields are at a certain level of expertise, at a certain level of responsibility where you deal with people, right? So with that background, we will get started and take this session forward. Let me share screen again. Okay. So we're talking about emotional intelligence for leaders, and we are saying leadership success is emotional before it is rational. What it means is people, when they see somebody as a leader, they want to connect with the person, they want to feel the person before they start listening to the person or understand the person, right? So before even it becomes rational, where people want to understand what the leader is saying, how to follow, not to follow, and all that, they want to feel, they want to understand the person, right? So what we're going to do is I'm going to present uh, a very normal standard situation for a leader. That is, a leaders, when they're leading a team of people, they have pressures, right? So we are seeing a example here. I would say it's a simple story wherein this person, this leader, is under real pressure. So I would want you to read this and tell me what comes to your mind, right? So the pressure was real, whether it's a project delivery or a service delivery, deadlines were tight, stakes were very high, and the leader was accountable to results. When during these tense moments, his voice sharpened. Questions, the questions which he wanted to ask, they became statements, as if this is how it is, statement for life. Then the urgency which he was facing turned into irritation. Is that relatable? We have seen many people, going through this phase. He believed this is just pressure. Results are the things which matter. This is just pressure. This is what the leader believed. Now, what did the team think? Team heard something else because the leader was irritated. Leader was not listening to what is coming. Any input which is coming in, you know, uh, the because of irritation he was not receiving it. So team heard something else. That is, mistakes are dangerous. Over time, people stopped taking risks, and problems were shared very late. Decisions were escalated unnecessarily. Whatever could be resolved at a lower level, nothing got resolved. Everything got pushed up the ladder, and everything came to the leader. Then the leader had to work hard. He worked harder and harder. The team became cautious. Now, here in this example, you see that performance did not collapse, but it plateaued. It did not move up. Performance was not improving. So this is just you know, a story kind of a thing, a scenario which is presented to you. Is this something which is relatable? We have seen in our own corporate lives or leadership positions, saying that pressure is there. This is what happens. Now, if you look at this, what was missing? What was the problem with this team? What do you think? Any thoughts? You can put it on the. Give me a moment. Yeah, please think about what was the problem in this situation. What happened? What was missing? What was missing in this scenario that the team is facing like that? Team is feeling like that. What would be your
The
suggestion to
team
the
is
leader?
not connected to the team is not connected to the leader, or the leader is not connected to the team.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. When you say connected, what would you mean with that?
The leader is not able to convey his uh, thoughts in the right fashion, so that it lands right in the team member's mind.
Okay.
And vice versa, team members are also not able to understand the leader, what he's trying to convey.
Okay. Team members and leader are not connected. They are not able to understand each other, right? They're not able to understand
Yes,
each other.
yes, right.
Okay.
It is
Sure.
correct.
So I would share this as no open channels for communication. So communication is only happening one way.
Communication is happening one way. All right.
Yeah.
And why would you say that, sir?
Yeah, because you've created an environment,
Mm-hmm.
although there is pressure and all that, but you have by the way you are communicating, you
Uh-huh.
have you have kind of propelled people to close themselves up into their own shells and not give any feedback. So which so feedback is essential for any project or anything that you are doing in order
Absolutely.
for it to be successful. So you've closed the doors for teamwork. And that's why the pressure is coming back to him only.
Wonderful. Beautifully said. So what you mean is that the team is not feeling safe to share.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
clearly being said. Nah? They are all feeling afraid of taking risks.
Afraid.
And
Yeah.
then
Yeah. Yeah.
they could have met quite often
Mm-hmm.
rather than meeting only at the time of crucial situation.
Okay. Communication
Because
channels. Okay.
the channels have to be open
Sure.
and they can meet as well as discuss and come out with some solutions.
Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. Then
The,
what is that leader? What is
the
the leader
team
should
is
be
not
doing?
linked.
Leader should invite.
Leader
He
should
must, he
invite.
must go to the problem area. That is also one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And second thing, he can even invite people to come and sit and have an open discussion.
Okay. All right. Sure. Thank you. Anilji, go ahead.
In my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
leader is micromanaging everything and
Mm-hmm.
he is not empowering the team. And this is the result. Because of that, he is facing these types of problems.
It is not empowering the team. Okay. Sure. I heard that. Nageshwarji?
yeah, the team is not engaged, as Anilji told.
Sure.
The
Okay.
communication was not clear. What is the goal? The team didn't understood. So the leader keeps himself. So that's the pressure is again back to him.
Right. So do we see any problem with the leader's intention here? There is
No.
no problem with the leader's intention here. There is
Yeah.
no problem with the leader's hard work here. There is no problem with the leader's competence here. But something is missing. It feels like the bricks are there, but the cement is missing.
So the emotional bonding hasn't been created.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So what we are talking about here is something very significant is missing here. And what happens is when leaders don't manage their own emotions under pressure, they don't create urgency, but they create fear. So what happened here? This manager, as the pressure was increasing on him, he transmitted that pressure, urgency, irritability, everything he transmitted instead of being a leader holding it and connecting with his team at the level which they are capable of and getting the work no progress. He could not manage his own emotional state, so it transmitted. So when the leaders do not manage their own emotions, and why are we saying under pressure? Because what happens is no matter how much we get into system two thinking, under pressure, people fall into system one thinking. So it is a disciplined thinking process which people have to develop, which is what we're going to be talking about today here. Under pressure, people default into their system one thinking. And when that happens, the team is under pressure and they are fearful. So now that we have seen that example here, a very relevant example, I want you to reflect for yourself. You don't need to share here in the chat box here, but I just want you to reflect. Today's session is going to be reflective rather than a training program. It is more of reflective kind of a session wherein you will do your own reflection. Please do it on your paper, pen, your own thinking. You don't have to share it here. If you like to share, please feel welcome to share that. So in your own life, whether it is professional or personal, how does pressure show up in your own behavior? When there is time pressure, money pressure, relationship pressure, or society pressure, or whatever pressure you go through, when that happens, what changes in your behavior? How do you show up? How do you come across? I'll just give half a minute for you to think about it, then I will proceed. Yeah. So all of us know that when we are under pressure, we get into a certain way of behavior. And if I poll here, most of you would say, I don't like that behavior. Yeah. But that awareness helps us saying that, okay, under pressure, this is how I behave. I get irritated. I get angry. I shout at people. Let's say, if that awareness is the first starting step for us. Then the next thing is whoever is working with you, whether it is a family or the team in the professional life, when the stakes are high, what is your team feeling with your behavior? And then one more question for reflection here. What changes when you regulate, we can call it manage, pressure instead of transmitting? When you're under pressure, instead of transmitting to the family or social circle or professional circle, instead of transmitting it, if you manage, what would change? I'll just give few more seconds here, then move on. Okay, Sriram is sharing bodily feelings, headache. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Yes, sir.
For the question one,
Mm-hmm.
my reaction will be I'll forget.
Forget what?
What is to be done at that situation?
Blanking out. Okay.
Blanking.
Okay.
Second could be irritation. Third could be I'll be on a reactive mode, scold people. For the
Yeah.
second question, what might your team feel? The team will not be comfortable around you,
Mm-hmm.
and they might not even approach you to talk to you on certain issues. They will say, if I go to him, he's going to shout at me. Why go?
Yeah. Communication blocked.
Yeah. And third one,
Yeah.
once you are regulating yourself, a new alignment will start coming towards you.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
A new alignment of people coming towards you.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe you will be together able to solve that situation, problem, or pressure, whatever it is.
So instead of it becoming a mess, it has become a learning opportunity.
Yeah.
Am I right, sir?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you. I'm sure all of you have had some reflections. Please keep them with you. That will be useful for further conversations here. All right. So we have seen that cement between the bricks is missing. Okay, that emotional bonding, as Hitendraji was mentioning, emotional bonding was missing. We can also call it as emotional intelligence was missing. So Daniel Goleman, who was one of the foremost authorities in the subject of emotional intelligence, this is his statement here. You can see this. When emotional abilities are not with the person, if the person is not having self-awareness, if the person is not able to manage their own emotions, plus or minus, positive, negative, whatever emotion, not just negative, any emotion, And if the person is not able to have empathy or able to understand other people and build relationships, then no matter how smart they are, they're not going to go too far. Studies say that IQ, higher IQ people, have in the survey, they have seen that in the study, higher IQ people have only performed 20% better than other people. But higher EQ people have performed 75% better than other people. So, especially in leadership, we see that as people move up the ladder, as they have more number of people they're responsible to, EQ matters more. IQ is important. I'm not saying no. EQ matters more because that is what makes people come together, work together, achieve a common goal together. Right? So, emotional intelligence does matter. And every leader needs emotional intelligence to be effective. So emotional intelligence is not just a simple, soft skill. It is not like a good to have kind of a skill. I would call it as a leadership competency. Like we say, communication is a competency. We say, emotional intelligence is a competency. It's a mandatory competency for leaders to have a proper, leadership effectiveness. Why do we say that? Because what happens in the general, journey is that because of the smartness, because of the IQ, people get promoted in the industry, which I have seen around. People move up, but they have not moved up with respect to leadership. That's the reason there are challenges with the team management. So technical competencies could open up opportunities, but for leaders to stay at that level of leadership, they need to have emotional competence, emotional intelligence competence. And one more very important aspect to observe here is that leadership, as people become a senior, people become more experienced in their roles, that experience itself becomes a trap. Why do I say that? Because what happens is when people are experienced, they deal with many people, they deal with many situations. What happens is when they deal with many people in many situations, people have become very good with pattern recognition. So what happens is that experience tells them that they are good at understanding people and taking decisions. So what happens is that experience makes them take quick decisions about people, and that becomes a trap. Why do I say that? Because they're so confident about that pattern recognition, they may not be curious about what the other person is going, what the other person's situation is, what is the other person's reality is. So expertise builds credibility. But it also, that experience also comes with blind spots with respect to emotional intelligence. Why do I say this? Because typically leadership is associated with power, and power is associated with authority. And people do not, if they are not emotionally intelligent, they are not open for feedback. That is when blind spots keep growing. So that's the reason emotional intelligence is a required competency for leaders here. Right? It defines leadership effectiveness. So I have a short video here, about 2 to 3 minutes video. It talks about emotions. So let's have a look at this video, then I'll take you forward. Let me know if you're able to hear. Sir, is the audio audible to you? Anyone can? Yeah, Raghavanji, thank you.
When we hear the word emotion, most of us think of love, hate, happiness, or fear. Those strong feelings we experience throughout life. Our emotions are the driving force behind many of our behaviors, helpful and unhelpful. Just where do our emotions come from? Our brain is wired to look for threats or rewards. If one is detected, the feeling region of the brain alerts us through the release of chemical messages. Emotions are the effect of these chemical messages traveling from our brain through the body. When our brain detects a potential threat, our brain releases the stress hormones adrenaline and cortisol, which prepare us for a fight or flight response. When we detect or experience something rewarding, such as someone doing something nice for you, our brain releases dopamine, oxytocin, or serotonin. These are the chemicals that make us feel good and motivate us to continue on the task or behavior. In these instances, the feeling region of the brain kicks in before the thinking part. Sometimes the reactions of the feeling brain are so strong that it dominates our behaviors and we're unable to think rationally in the moment. Our emotions hijack our brain. Emotional responses happen subconsciously. Our thinking can influence our emotions, and sometimes this can be unhelpful. Just thinking about something threatening can trigger an emotional response. This is where we can manage our emotions with conscious thinking. Our emotions play a powerful role in the way we experience the world. Understanding and regulating our emotions through our thoughts and behaviors can help us take greater control of our brain and achieve our goals.
Wonderful. So we see that emotions are physical. We will dig deeper into that as we move ahead in this conversation here. So what is emotional intelligence? We talk about emotional intelligence is the capacity, so which is a developed skill. It's a capacity to recognize, understand, regulate, and intentionally use them in oneself. I think there is a repetition here, and others, to drive sound decisions, effective relationships, and sustained performance. Right? So emotional intelligence is a combination of multiple competencies here. It's about awareness and management. So emotional intelligence typically is misunderstood, consistently misunderstood. So what it is not, emotional intelligence is not just about eliminating emotion. It is not suppressing, repressing emotion. It is not about ignoring the emotion. Everybody has emotions. Emotions are very, very natural, right? Every human being has emotions, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. So it is not about repressing or suppressing emotions, but it is about channeling that energy strategically, channeling that emotion strategically. Emotional intelligence, a lot of people have a misunderstanding about. Leaders who have got high EQ are very soft. They cannot take tough decisions. They cannot be performers. So that's a misunderstanding. Emotional intelligence does not mean that emotional EQ, high EQ doesn't mean that people are soft. It only means that they are very clear with what their behavior has to be. They manage their emotions and they manage their behavior because of their high EQ. And high EQ does not mean high emotional quotient, high emotional intelligence does not mean that they avoid conflict. They're always nice people, avoiding conflicts kind of people. It means that they use the opportunity to have honest conversation, learning as a learning opportunity, and make it a win-win, or even if it is not a win-win, at least a collaborative effort towards addressing the conflict there. So it is not about controlling emotions. It is about making sure that emotions do not color the decision making. They do not control the leadership decision making, right? So of course, I'm not going to go into a biology class here, but a very simple understanding, basic understanding of the brain here. We have got multiple parts of the brain. One in our conversation today, what is important for us is this limbic and prefrontal, or PFC, we call it prefrontal cortex. So limbic system is where emotions, feelings, all those things get generated here. Prefrontal cortex is where thinking and rational decision making happen at the prefrontal cortex. But this limbic system came before the PFC. Because of our evolution, first the primitive brain came, which has the limbic system, then the thinking brain came, right? So what happens is when we see a signal, when our senses, all the five senses, if they sense something, the input comes to the brain through the spinal cord. So first it goes to the limbic system. Let's say, for example, you see a tiger, not in the zoo, but you're going somewhere and the tiger crosses. The fear creates an emotion, right? The fear is the emotion which is got created. We do not think, Okay, what do I do with it? You just start running, that's all. So the thinking happens after the emotion comes in. It could be fear, it could be happiness, it could be any emotion. First, the emotion gets triggered. So what is emotion here? What is that emotion we are talking about here? Emotion means it is a basic, you know, basic function of the brain. To call it basic function of the brain, uh, part of the brain called amygdala, which creates that emotion. As we have seen in the video, that emotion creates physiological changes. For example, you would have seen that when somebody is angry, you can see in their face the jaw getting clenched, the face becoming, the blood rushing into the face. Okay, you can see their hands maybe, trembling with anger. If you see somebody, let's say, what is a physical, expression of fear? Let's say if somebody is fearful, you can see their blood moving away from the face. That's the reason we say the face has gone cold, right? And that emotion called fear triggers a certain chemical reaction wherein the blood flows from all parts of the body to the limbs so that you can fight or fly, run away from it. We call it fight or flight syndrome, right? So for every emotion, the first signal what we see, as Sriram has mentioned in his chat message, is a bodily signal. Whether it is breathing, whether it is the eyes changing, or whether it is jaw clenching, tightening of the jaw, tightening of the chest, shallow breathing, fast breathing. So emotions always trigger a physiological reaction first. Most of us may not be even aware of it. We go with the flow. So first thing what happens with us is a physiological reaction. Even before the brain starts thinking, oh, what has happened, right? So we'll see some examples about some of these emotions. There are 6 emotions mentioned here. Somebody could say 8, somebody could say 5. There is still a lot of discussions happening about what are the basic emotions. But here are very well accepted list of 6 basic emotions. Okay. What are those? We're talking about emotion, let's say happiness. What is triggering that happiness? It could be receiving praise. So what happens when the person is receiving praise? There is a chemical called endorphin which releases, and behavioral response could be happiness, laughter, that they become more approachable. So let's say sadness. A trigger could be loss of a loved one. Physiological response, low energy, tears, right? Behavioral response, they get into a shell. So you see a behavioral response, you see a physiological response. But physiological response always comes before behavioral response, right? Let's say fear. Trigger could be sudden danger, as I said, an animal or snake or something, right? What happens? What's the physiological response? Rapid heartbeat. We discussed it. To run, anger, tense muscles, face is flushed. And the behavioral response could be yelling and shouting at somebody, right? And when we say emotion called surprise, wide eyes, oh wow, kind of a thing, then brief pause. That's behavioral response. Disgust, that we don't like something. It is very disgusting. Okay, wrinkled nose, okay, and avoidance, we saw it. So when we look at physiological responses, as the study says, that these physiological responses are same across the world, no matter what is the culture, what is the country, what is the language they speak, what is the background. The emotional responses that are physiological, they're all universally similar. So emotions are basic, and the response to the emotion, the physiological response, is also similar. But what changes after that? What actually happens inside us is this is the pattern which we see, right? When a trigger happens, our body sends a signal to the brain. Then the emotion gets triggered. The emotion gets triggered, that is physiological change and all we discussed about. The emotion gets triggered, then feeling gets generated. This is the cycle. This is the way it moves. from the emotion, the feeling gets generated. Feeling, from the feeling, the thoughts get generated, the ideas come, thoughts come, and then it shows up in action, which is behavior. So when we say emotion, what we're talking about is the biological responses. As I mentioned, they are universal. All of us have got emotions, and they result in physiological responses. Now, but then what are feelings? Any thoughts? Any thoughts from anybody here? What is the difference between a feeling and an emotion? We typically interchange them. We use them together. But what could be the difference?
The time duration
Okay, time duration. What do you mean by time duration?
between emotion and feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I might feel
Mm-hmm.
something is not good here.
Okay.
That could be a temporary feeling, but
Okay.
emotion can be embedded and that can create some kind of a sadness and all those things.
Okay.
It's just my thinking.
Sure, sure. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing.
Okay, so my idea of this is probably that the
Yeah.
emotion is the biological response of the body,
Mm-hmm.
and the feeling is actually the conversion of that biological response into a expressive mode of the body. So which is
Okay.
kind of reflecting in the action. So in that sense, the feeling is the action that we take based on the biological response, something
Ye-
like that.
Yes, feeling
Okay.
may be in the mind and biological is the emotion.
Okay. Wonderful.
Feeling is the mind. From mind, then we go into the thought.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure.
Feeling is the measurement of emotions, like
Okay.
qualitative.
Qualitative. Okay. All right. Wonderful. Thank you all for sharing your thoughts here. As I mentioned, emotions are basic and it is seen in the bodily response, biological response, physiological response. And that is universal. Emotions are all universal, all those six emotions which we spoke about. But feelings are innumerable. Why do I say that? Feeling is very subjective to the person. The same emotion could mean something to you, could mean something else to me. So feeling is a subjective interpretation of that emotion by the person based on their own experience, their own memories, their own culture, their own expectations. So feeling is very, very subjective to the person. Let's say, for example, a company let's say there is a merger happening. The event is same. Let's say there is a fear of losing jobs. Okay, that's an emotion, right? Somebody is planning to leave the company. What is their feeling? Somebody is planning to stick with the company for 5 more years. What is their feeling? Emotion could be same, fear that something is going to change, but feelings are based on other person's expectation, that person's experience. It could be based on their own context. Am I making sense here? Yeah, thank you. Wonderful. So emotion is universal, but feelings is something which is based on our own our own subjectivity, right? So interpretation of the emotion, which is conscious, we call it conscious interpretation of emotion, is called the feeling. That means that is in our control. Emotion is not in our control. Feeling is something which is subject to our own processing in the mind. So raw material is the emotion, processing is the feeling, output is the action. That is a simpler way to look at this aspect here, right? So, and then from there, the thoughts get generated, feelings generate thoughts, which generates behavior and action. And what we see is action, the tip of the iceberg. Under the iceberg is what we have all this processing happening. And one big difference between emotions and feelings are that emotions are very, very intense and they are short-lived. They are for few seconds. Emotions are for very, very short duration. Feelings are slow to come. After the emotion hits, feelings are slow to come, but they stay with the person for a long time, maybe for years. For example, in an environment, let's say in a job, a boss shouted on the person. Boss, for whatever reason, boss was unhappy, boss shouted on the employee. The feeling of angry, being the emotion of being angry, uh, was there with the employee for a few seconds, maybe few minutes, but the feeling of being disrespected, of being dismissed, of being not taken seriously, it could be any feeling, right? So that feeling stays with the person for their whole life. Am I making sense? Anyone? Would like to comment on this? Is it making sense to you?
Yeah. When I was removed from the job, I
Mhm.
cried. But then after a day, I am back. But even today, after 20 years, I have a feeling why I was removed from my job.
Wow. Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing. Thanks for being vulnerable to share with all of us here. So that's a wonderful example again there. The emotion was for a short period, very intense. The feeling is long lived. And feelings is what people hold, which is shown in their behavior. Let's say two people are working together, they are not able to collaborate. The residual feelings from the previous thing could be holding it back. So all this is part of leadership competence when people have to understand that their own emotional management impacts their team, and the feelings what the team is holding, what is the meaning they are giving to those feelings, determines how they show up in their work and the performance. Yeah. So it is very important to understand
Can I
that.
interrupt for a second before we proceed?
Yeah, please go ahead, Hitandraji.
So, so this demarcation between feelings and thoughts,
Yeah,
you know, I still feel that this is a little gray area. So
yeah,
maybe if you can delve into how to, break it up into what is the difference between a feeling and a thought.
yeah. See, mind is not like a machine which has a segmented boxes for each of them. As you correctly said, they're all intermingled, right? So the feeling and thought, the big difference is that feeling is still in the limbic system. We may not have any evidence for the feeling, but thoughts you come up with, uh, you know, thoughts which are getting generated from the feelings. Okay, you have got some thinking behind it, right? So thoughts come from the neocortex, which is from the thinking brain. Feelings are still in the limbic brain there. But as you said, they're all mingled and they're working together. Sometimes there
But
could
is
be.
it not very instantaneous? I thought that, from the conversion period from a feeling to a thought would be maybe microseconds, maybe for definition purposes, people can, give explanations like what you just gave from a biological, that limbic system and the other systems. But
Yeah.
from a ground reality of a business environment or a family situation or whatever you want to, take this real life
Mhm.
situations,
Mhm.
I personally feel that these would be very, very,
Quick.
very close to each other, very close.
Absolutely agreed. So brain imaging, they have done all this study through the brain imaging, and
Okay.
they have seen which part of the brain is getting fired
Okay.
at
Okay.
what sequence.
Okay. So that could
But
be a logical explanation to understand the way
yeah,
the world puts it. But from a, from a real life situation,
right. No,
it's
you're
good
absolutely
for,
right.
it's good to
No, but
explain to
again,
people,
I feel, sir,
but
there is a stark difference between feeling and thought. Because feeling is something internal, and the
Mhm.
thought is how I express that feeling out,
Correct.
and that comes to my brain, and then I
Correct.
express it out.
sir,
That's it.
I don't know. This is again very, very internal, but
Yeah.
again, this is
I'll just
subject
give
to
you a small
every
example.
person his way. Somebody may keep his thought internal, and like so many thoughts may come about a particular person or a situation, and and that may always be hidden within that own person's mind. So
You
not
are perfect.
necessarily expressed outward, but
Yes, you
yes,
are perfect. But
yeah.
here is the point of emotional intelligence. How do you convey your feelings into thoughts? Is emotional intelligence.
So
Okay.
we'll come
For
there, sir.
example,
Yeah, so we'll come to that anyway.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
please proceed, sir. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought it was important if I can grasp this somewhere better.
Thank you for bringing that up because that helps everyone's understanding here. As you correctly said, they're all microseconds. We actually cannot see in front of us which phase we are in, right? Because they're all so quick, right? Uh, it's about the meaning which we assign to the feeling. I am sad or I am unhappy with this person. We are, they are assigning a meaning to a certain, feeling there. It becomes thought, then it becomes a behavior for us. So of course, I wish if this was a 3 hour, 4 hour session, we could have gone deeper, but that actually gives us an idea about how the processing happens here. How is the sequence in our system here? So the bottom line, what we are trying to understand here is that we are not intelligent with emotion because we cannot stop the emotion there, right? But we are intelligent with feelings. So that is the critical understanding which we need here is that our intelligence is coming with managing our feelings. So why do we say that? Because emotions happen, they're involuntary and instant. Feelings are chosen. They are chosen. For example, something happened that emotion is triggered a feeling that is interpreted and shaped by our own experiences. And we are choosing that feeling, right? For example, we can always, when we talk about somebody is feeling low, when we go and give them suggestion, do not feel like that, see the life in that way, see the life in this way. What are we doing? We are trying to help them change the feeling so that they can choose that, interpretation, right? So leadership lives in the choice about what kind of choice am I choosing. For example, in a meeting, leader is saying something, team member, let's say, for example, he says, "Sir, I do not agree with this point." What is the emotion which typically leader has? Anger. The feeling could be disrespected. So disrespect is the meaning which the leader is associating with somebody not agreeing to what he's saying. So you see that emotion is there, but disrespect, terming that thing, that event as a disrespect is a chosen, interpreted based on the leader's thinking. Let's say the leader says that event which happened, he says, okay, I'm happy that somebody is thinking in a different way. Somebody is being a devil's advocate. Okay, what do you have to say? Okay, share your mind. So that is a chosen behavior again. So the feeling is chosen, and that is where leadership comes into picture. How the team responds, how the team behaves is based on the leader's choice of how they behave based on their own emotional intelligence. So leadership lives in the choice here between stimulus, that is emotion, and then response, which is our action, right? You do not choose emotions, but you choose how do you notice them. For example, somebody, raised an objection in a meeting. Okay. Let's say the leader's breathing behavior has changed. Is the leader able to, if he is getting angry, is he able to realize, is he able to notice that my breathing behavior has changed? That means I'm getting angry. If I'm getting angry, that means I'm going to shout on somebody. And if I'm shouting on somebody, even if the other person is right, and I'm going to lose that person. So all that emotional, all that analysis, all that awareness, all that management is what we're talking about emotional intelligence, right? So we can choose how to notice it. We can choose how to label them. What is the meaning we assign to that feeling, and how do we respond, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So till now we spoke about why part of emotional intelligence, right? So we're only going to look at three aspects in this session here. Why emotional intelligence? That too from the leadership perspective here. Then what is emotional intelligence? Then we'll talk about, okay, what are the tools which can help me, improve my emotional intelligence? Why, what, and how, right? Okay, so what are the 4 pillars of emotional intelligence we are talking about here? First is self-awareness. Knowing what's running, what's happening within me right now. Okay, self-awareness. Like, for example, if I ask all of you, what is the emotion you're going through right now? Don't tell me. I hope you will not say that boredom or something. I hope you're all, even if you're not on the video here, you're all, in the session here right now. Okay, so can you take a moment to think about what are you experiencing, the emotion or the feeling right? You don't have to share it here. Then we are talking about self-management. How do we manage that state? Then we're talking about self-awareness, self-management. Then we're talking about social awareness. That is, how about people around me, whether it is all, personal or professional, social, wherever we are. How about the mental state, emotional state, or emotional state of people around me? How am I being aware of it? Yeah, am I being aware of my team's mental state, what they're feeling, what they're experiencing emotion, reading what is not said. Then we are talking about using emotion to drive outcomes. What we mean is, so my ability to know myself, my ability to know other people, with that awareness, am I able to build a working relationship? I'm able to manage the relationship for, a common agenda, a common goal, right? Are we able to work together on this? This is one more way of looking at the same 4 competencies here. We are talking about awareness, which is self and others, right? And then we are talking about actions, self-management and relationship management. So all these are the 4 elements of emotional intelligence. So how does this emotional intelligence help me, especially as a leader here? Self-awareness helps the person understand their own emotions, understand their own self, strengths, weakness, areas of improvement, realize their potential, understand how they respond. Self-management helps the leader or anybody about their own self-control, how to motivate themselves, right? How do they adapt to the situation there? Social awareness, understanding other people's state of mind, other people's state of emotion, or their feelings, or how they're behaving, would help the leader to empathize, to connect better with the other person, communicate effectively, and aware of the team dynamics there. I'm sure all of you would agree as a leader, team dynamics, understanding team dynamics would be very, very important for the leader to understand how to work with the team, right? And then finally, relationship management. We're talking about how the leader can manage conflicts. How can they manage team environment? How can they manage the culture, right? How can they inspire their team? How do we do that? That is what we will talk about right now, okay? So we're going to be talking about each of the 4 elements in today's session, each of the 4 elements and some of the tools. So each tool, of course, there are many, many tools under each of the segment here, but I have chosen some few tools for our session here today. So self-awareness is knowing what is happening within me in real time. Especially we talk about starts with the body signal scan. Okay. Now, if I request all of you guys, all of you in the session here, to just scan your body and say, and look at, observe your breathing, observe your, energy. When I say energy, is it flowing or is it stagnant? Is it stuck? Is the jaws clenched? Is the breathing normal? Okay, just not that you would be in any other emotion, but just to get an experience of body scan, right? Top to bottom. That is one of the tools. So when we have a trigger and we get an emotion, as Hitendraji mentioned, it is all so quick. And that is the reason our actions, which are based on emotional input, sometimes we may not like. So our purpose of emotional intelligence is to slow down that process from emotion, from the trigger to the action. So purpose of emotional intelligence is to slow it down. So first step of slowing down is to understand our bodily signal, point number one. Then another very important way to manage it is to labeling it. For example, when somebody is angry, yeah, let's say some event happened, some trigger happened, you're going through certain emotion. Instead of flowing with the emotion, if we try to label it, saying that, okay, this is what has happened, I am feeling angry. I am angry is different, I am feeling angry is different. Okay, I am angry means I am identifying with the anger. I am feeling angry means anger is one aspect which I'm feeling right now, which is temporary. Okay, so labeling, what happens is putting a label to the emotion. That means just putting a name to the emotion. What are you feeling? Whichever emotion you're feeling, just try to identify it. Say, anger, fear, happiness, sadness, whatever it is. Why is this useful? By labeling what is happening is you are moving your process from limbic system to the thinking system, to the prefrontal cortex. That is the thinking brain. By labeling, we are forcing our brain to start firing at the thinking side. So labeling helps people to identify which emotion they are going through. Then after that, then another very useful tool to everybody is journaling. What is journaling? If not immediately at the emotion, at least by the end of the day. Sitting down and asking, what is the strongest emotion I felt? Which created a feeling which stayed with you for a long period of time. Then asking questions like, what triggered it? Let's say you were driving, somebody crossed you, somebody cut you in between and went. So what was the emotion? What was the feeling? What was the behavior? So you know that there's something triggered you, somebody crossing. What did it mean to you? Why did you have to respond like that? Right? So it meant something. It meant disrespect. It meant disrespect for the rules. It meant disrespect for traffic, whatever it is. It had some meaning. So when you journal it, you become clear about your own triggers. I don't see anyone. I hope you're all here. Is it making sense? Can somebody just give me a thumbs up? Or say yes, hello. All right. Anilji, I see.
We are all here. We are all here.
नहीं कभी कभी लगता है
We are all enjoying your session. Don't worry.
थैंक यू नहीं मुझे लग रहा था कि हाँ सब लोग सो गए क्या
नहीं कोई
all right, thank you sir, thank you very
all
much.
are very alert. Yes.
Thank you. So journaling is one wonderful way at the end of the day when we put down our triggers and our behavior, especially strong emotions. We cannot do it for every emotion. We cannot do it for every emotion, but for few emotions which stayed with you for a longer period of time, please do this. What is the trigger? What is the emotion? What is the feeling? What is my behavior? And then look at a pattern. Is this a pattern with me? Whenever somebody does a similar kind of a thing or something in a different way, am I getting triggered in the same way? Is the same emotion getting triggered? So that pattern recognition helps you become more self-aware. Then mindfulness. At that moment when the emotion happened, mindfulness really helps us to, which leads us to a self-management. Mindfulness, there are many tools for mindfulness. One of the tool is to ask yourself, what is going on internally, what is going on externally. That means I can feel the chill, I can feel the heat, I can feel the air around me. So seeing what is happening outside. Let's say I can feel the chair on which I'm sitting. I can hear some sounds outside. So what happens is when the mind is taken to external environment and then take it to the internal environment, you take your mind to external environment, internal environment, that creates a pause in that quick flow of emotion to feeling to action. It creates a pause. So that creates I don't know, an opportunity for thinking. One more method of mindfulness is asking yourself, okay, what are the 5 things I see around me? For example, something happened, you're on very intense emotion. Instead of responding immediately, instead of reacting to somebody immediately, you want to take a pause and think about it. So you're asking yourself, what are the 5 things I see around me? What are the 4 things I can hear around me? So if all of you can, as I'm speaking, if you can think about it, what are the 5 things you see around you? What are the 4 things you can hear around you? What are the 3 things you can feel? Maybe the chair, the table, the computer. What are the 2 things you can, smell around you? Maybe the chill of the AC or whatever it is. What is the one thing which you can feel the taste in your mouth? So this is one more method of practicing mindfulness, because when you do that, the pause happens. Then that flurry of action between emotion, feeling, and behavior, that stops and creates a pause. So mindfulness also is one useful tool for becoming self-aware. So this is a wheel of emotion, we call it. There are emotions, then there are feelings around it. Okay, as Hitendraji was asking, feelings and emotions, they're also intermingled, jumbled up. Yes, they're all together. So as I mentioned, there are so many feelings which could be coming out of emotions. Okay, and each of them, and this is not limited, there are many more emotions, many more feelings which could be generated out of this, as we call them dyads or combinations. So you can check it out online also, Plutchik's Wheel of Emotions, what all feelings are related with the emotions there. Okay, so the reason I'm showing this here is this helps us to become aware of what all emotions, what all feelings are possible. It helps us to label the emotions. It helps us to label the feelings. So labeling helps us to take a pause. Okay, then we come to, we did self-awareness. In self-awareness, we become aware of what is my current emotion and feeling. Now we come to self-management. Now self-management is about choosing response instead of reacting. So what are the tools which could be useful to us? 6-second pause. Why 6-second pause? Because that is when the emotion is very, very intense. Instead of jumping the gun and reacting to somebody, you take that pause, clarify the meaning. Okay, what does this mean to me? For example, as I mentioned, somebody raising an objection in a meeting. Is the objection about me, or is the objection about the point which I'm making, or is the objection about the result which is going to happen from this decision? I'm just taking some example here. So when you ask few questions to clarify the meaning of what has happened, meaning of the trigger which has happened, your thinking brain gets fired. When the thinking brain gets fired, you become more rational rather than being emotional. So taking a 6-second pause and clarifying the meaning of the event, meaning of the trigger, helps us to choose the response. That's one tool. The another tool is the breathing pattern. As we have all seen that, when the emotion hits, it creates a physiological response, and breathing gets affected in that physiological response. So one way to get back control on self is to get back control on the breathing. When somebody's anxious, when somebody is experiencing emotion of fear or anxiety, those kind of things, the breathing pattern becomes very shallow. So deep breathing, mindful deep breathing, taking long, deep breaths, calms down the fear, calms down the anger. And that's the reason people say count to 10 and, walk 10 steps and all those things, right? So deep breathing is one method. Another method is, we call it box breathing. Box breathing. What is box breathing? Let's say you take 7 seconds to inhale. Okay. 7 seconds to inhale, 7 seconds hold it. Then 7 seconds exhale, then 7 seconds hold. That's the reason we call it as a box, right? So you can all practice that. Let me walk you through that so that you just get an experience of this box breathing. If you've already done that as part of your yoga or something, fantastic. If you're not experienced, maybe you can just try it out. Okay, maybe you can start off. I'll say inhale and you can go with me. Inhale, hold, exhale and hold. I will say that. Okay, take a deep breath, inhale, hold, slowly exhale, hold. Yeah, thank you. Did it affect the state of mind? Did it calm down? Did it calm down the thoughts? Calm down the state of mind? So that is one way. Breathing pattern, deep breathing, box breathing. In Indian, wisdom, we also talk about left nostril breathing in the yogic wisdom. Left nostril breathing activates parasympathetic nervous system, which calms down people. Okay. Of course, I will not get into the details of it right now. So breathing pattern is one way to manage your state of mind, emotion. Then reframing the event. Why do I say responsibility here? Because we're talking about leaders here. Reframing whatever has happened towards your responsibility as a leader. For example, when somebody has done something in the team, instead of asking why are they like this? Why do people do like this? Why are they not on time? Why are they not punctual? Why are they not coming to the meeting? Why are they not doing this? Instead of asking questions like why are they like this, you put the focus back into the responsibility and say what is required of me as a leader right now. So when you reframe the situation, reframe the trigger to leadership responsibility, thinking brain gets triggered and self-management happens. Then I said trigger management. Because of journaling, we know what are our triggers. And because you're aware of your triggers, you are telling yourself, this is how I'm going to manage when the trigger happens. For example, in the office, so and so happens. When my boss says so and so, this is how I'm going to manage. Even if I'm going to get angry, this is what I'm going to do. Okay. So you manage the triggers themselves instead of managing after effects of the trigger. When the trigger happens, how do you look at it? Right. Of course, visualization, self-talk, they're all some more ways of managing your state of mind, managing yourself. Then the third step, talking about social awareness, accurately reading others and reading the room. What is the energy of the room? What is the emotion of the people around me? How do we do that? Some of the tools is to notice non-verbal cues. Their tone, body language, energy shift. Somebody's energy is dropping, somebody's happy to be there. So your ability to notice non-verbal cues. Of course, don't make any judgment based on non-verbal cues. At least you notice saying that, okay, this is what is happening. Okay. The tone, for example, somebody is agitated, their tone is different. Somebody is peaceful, their tone is different. Right? You notice those cues. Then, how do we improve our social awareness? By active listening. When I say active listening happens when we are curious about somebody. Active listening means you are actively listening, asking questions, paraphrasing what they're saying. You're keen to know what they're saying. What is the opposite of active listening? We call it judgment. People do not listen when they feel that I already know what you're saying. Right? For example, a leader is dealing with a team. If a team member is bringing a problem to the leader or the manager, and he says, I have been there, I have done that, I exactly know what is your problem. Even without listening to the whole problem, if the leader is giving the solution, maybe if it is the right solution also, what is the team member feeling? Oh, I've not even heard. So they may not be looking for solution, but they are wanting to be heard first. Right? So judgment is the enemy of active listening. So what is the best way to practice active listening? Always telling ourselves, saying that, hey, I am curious to know your story. Whatever people are bringing, I'm curious to know your story. Right? So active listening helps us to understand people better, which improves our social awareness. Perceptual position means putting ourselves in their shoe and understanding. For example, the team member is bringing certain challenge. Instead of giving solution directly, if I see myself saying that, okay, this is the current scenario, this is what they're bringing to the table. Okay, if I'm in their shoes, what am I seeing? What am I hearing? What is visible to me? So seeing from their point of view, which is perceptual position. Right? And there is one more method called empathy mapping. You ask these questions. I'll show you the empathy map in the next slide. You ask these questions. You put yourself in their position and ask these questions. Okay. The other person, let's say if it is that is she, say, what does she say and do? What does she do in this scenario? How has her behavior changed? What does she see? What things her environment is influencing her? What competitors is she seeing? So like this, you're asking certain questions. What does she see? What does she think and feel? What does she hear? What does she say and do? And you're asking, what is the pain that person, the other person is facing? And what is the gain they're hoping to get? So you may ask her, do we have time to do all this as a leader? At that moment, it may not be possible to do everything, use all the tools. But the reason we talk about the tools is so that if we consciously practice it, it becomes part of our system one. System two, this is all system two practicing, right? If we practice all these things, they will become part of our natural being, right? That's when our responses would be much more managed. So this is a tool called empathy map. This empathy mapping helps us to see from their point of view. So by doing this, using these tools, we have improved our social awareness, ability to understand the other person's state of mind, emotion, right? And after that, the final step we come to is the relationship management. We have done self-awareness, we have done self-management, we have understood other people, and now working with them. Relationship management is about working with them. Using emotions to influence outcomes constructively. So what are the tools we are talking about here? One very important tool is consciously trying to match your verbal and non-verbal communication. Let's say leader has gone through a certain event just before, let's say leader is meeting a team member or a negotiator or the client or whatever vendor. Before that meeting, something happened, and that emotion, if the person is carrying, into this conversation, the mismatch creates a gap. So if the leader is consciously, if the person, not just the leader, if anybody consciously try to manage their verbal and non-verbal communication, they become aware of their non-verbal communication first thing. Because they become aware, they start managing. Second thing is because they're trying to consciously manage their thinking brain, rational mind. Rational mind comes into picture, not the emotional mind. Right? what are the other ways of managing these relationships, managing the environment around, is to create safe space with the other person. What is safe space? Psychological safe space. Psychological safe space means when people are not feeling judged, when they are not feeling, uh, pushed to the wall, pushed to the corner. They're feeling safe to share. Okay. And how does that happen? When the leader shows by example, by showing their vulnerability. When we are able to share our vulnerability, the other side, they're also ready to share their vulnerability. So by creating safe space and creating that environment of sharing vulnerability creates trust. And that becomes a ground for working together in a collaborative space. So style, when we say style, it could be personality style, communication style. Style flexing means understanding the other person's style, understanding your style. If the other person wants to, let's say, a report is getting discussed, the other person's style could be very different from your style of understanding a report. Let's say your style is about understanding the context and the background and the data and all that information. The other person's style could be, come to the data. What is the data speaking? So if you understand the other person's style and say this is what they're looking for, you flex your style to meet their requirement. Then common ground happens. And with that common ground, collaboration happens. So style flexing is one more method of connecting with people, working with people. And how do we get there? Only because we have understood through our social awareness stage, we understood the other person's style. Right? And finally, feedback, soliciting feedback or giving feedback. Whether we are taking feedback or giving feedback, in both ways, it really helps us to understand other person's reality and share our reality. I call there is a methodology or a framework called SBI framework, not State Bank of India, but SBI framework of feedback. What it means is situation, behavior, and impact. So when you are giving feedback or asking for feedback, instead of being emotional, you want to use this rational feedback method called situation, behavior, impact. What it means is you're asking about, let's say, for example, if you're giving a feedback to somebody saying that you're always late to the meeting. So that is a judgment. You're always late to the meeting is a judgment. And people, you trigger a certain emotion in them and you trigger the resultant feelings after that. Right? So because it is very generic, people get offended. So SBI model says, it talks about you're being very specific to the situation. Last 3 meetings, this is what I've seen. So you're talking about a certain situation. In that situation, you talk about that specific behavior. Okay, last 3 meetings I am seeing this is happening. Is there anything that you would like to share about it? Is there anything that I can help you with? So when you talk about specific situation, specific behavior, people feel seen, people feel heard, and you trigger a different type of emotion instead of triggering that negative emotion. I here is impact. So you talk about in this specific situation, and you showcase that kind of behavior, and that had this kind of impact. So by being specific, you're helping the person not only get the feedback, but get learning from the feedback, right? So that is one method of feedback. So these are all multiple tools. Of course, there are many more tools, and each of these tools will also require a good amount of time for us to practice. So I'm giving you an overview here because it's a 90-minute masterclass here. I would recommend, really encourage if you can practice this, see some, impact with this, these tools. It would be wonderful to hear that, right? So finally, we should look at this, emotional intelligence as a system. We're talking about how do we notice, making it as a regular practice for ourselves. How do we notice our triggers? How do we notice our current emotion, what I'm going through? Maybe currently we're all peaceful, but when a certain emotion happens, what am I looking for? Body signals, my mind, the way it is looking at this scenario, how am I noticing it? And how am I regulating it? Notice, then regulate, which is self-management. Read social cues, which is social awareness, then influence. So this practice helps us to become more emotionally intelligent. So AI is not just about being calm. It's about being effective when it matters most. And when does it matter? At the heat of the moment. At the heat of the moment, we may not remember all the theory, we may not remember all the words and all that stuff, but our practice is what helps us to use emotional intelligence as an effective tool in working with people, working with teams, becoming an effective leader. Because the cost of not having emotional intelligence is very, very high, especially for leaders. For all of us, we are all leaders in our own sphere, in our own space of work. So the cost of not having emotional intelligence is very high. So it is a non-negotiable competence, I would call. So just to close the session, I would recommend or highly encourage everyone. You don't need to share it here, but I want you to think about it. What is that one trigger which I'm going to be watchful about? Because we know what is the certain emotions which we go through regularly, anger, happiness, whatever it is. What is that one trigger I'm going to be watchful about? What is that one behavior I want to change after the trigger happens? And from these tools, what are the tools I would like to, at least one tool, which I would like to use, practice, make it a part of my regular system so that I really master emotional intelligence as a leadership competence. Right. So that would be my recommendation, encouragement, and also say request there. Yeah. But so thank you very much for being such a wonderful audience, being clued in and interacting, engaging, sharing your thoughts. Thank you very much. So with that, I pause and would love to hear any comments, thoughts, any suggestions. Would love to hear you.
It was detailed, comfortable language, made me understand this subject. I'm happy to attend this.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I hope I could make sense and add value to everyone.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
Very
Great.
good.
Wonderful. Thank you all. Thank you, Arun sir, for this opportunity to interact and share. So love to look forward to see you all soon. And Arun sir is here.
Namaste.
Namaste, sir.
Yeah, it was a great session. I just came back to the hotel, but I was
Sir, your voice is breaking. Sir, we are not.
throughout. It was great.
Yeah. Connectivity is not there.
Thank you, Mr. Ram. I'm having very high fever. Problem with the voice.
Oh my God.
Oh. Take rest, sir. Take rest.
Is
Hope
there
you're
any
able to hear
problem?
us, sir.
Is there any problem with the voice or something?
And now we can hear you, sir. We were not able to hear you before.
Okay.
Just now.
Okay.
It's okay.
I was hearing you throughout. It was very, very interesting, very useful. I'm sure it will help a lot of people, particularly those who are in the front line of corporate management, team management. They will benefit a lot from your input. Just to test my understanding, did I get you right when you said that, self-awareness, mindfulness is a tool which has to be practiced to develop emotional intelligence?
Yeah. Yes, sir. It's one of the tools for self-awareness and self-management.
Okay. So you see, in this thing, I'm reminded, being a student of cognitive science, about the research conducted by Joseph Ledoux. and others have shown that the amygdala fires very, very fast and often activates before conscious awareness does.
Yes, sir.
And in the process, there is an emotional reaction. It's a very severe emotional reaction. And oftentimes, awareness comes only after the damage has been done. From personal experience, I can tell you that many a time, having been in very senior positions, I have seen that sometimes I notice it myself and I wonder if others will relate with it, that I react. I say something and then I suddenly react, oh shit, I shouldn't have said that. So you see, emotional intelligence, I don't know where I read it, but somewhere I read is that emotional intelligence is all about being able to reduce the reaction time or the time it takes for you to recover after you have reacted, so that you can minimize the damage and prevent it from escalating. Oftentimes what happens is we get so drawn into the conflict, into the spiral, that we don't realize that with each and every step, every moment, we are escalating the whole thing. Maybe you could, from your personal experience as a coach and a trainer, maybe you could add a lot of value to this. Maybe you can look up some research papers on this, because
Sure,
from
sir.
what Joseph Ledoux and his team and many other researchers have said is that oftentimes, we realize that we should have said that once the emotion has already played off.
True. In the
So
heat
I
of the moment.
sometimes think, I sometimes think, that stopping the first reaction is something which is not in our hand. It is in nobody's hand. I don't think anyone has been able to stop the first reaction. But shortening the time between the reaction and the repair can add tremendous amount of emotional intelligence. That is something which is, maybe we can think of it like a timing aspect. Biologically, the emotional brain fires first and cognition then catches up. So perhaps EI operates in phases: reaction, awareness, regulation, repair. Maybe it goes something like that.
Yes.
I
So what
think
we are talking
you
about?
have initiated a lot of thought in this. Or have I got it wrong? Because you see, I was in the cart with a lot of noise and everything. And I had to attend to my family members also who are there. So I hope I got what you said right.
No,
Because this was what
wonderful,
was
sir. So,
working in my mind when you said.
yeah, because you were traveling, and we're thankful that you're here attending and being
No,
part of this
I
session here.
heard the full program.
So yeah. So what I was talking about in the session was emotional intelligence is more about catching ourselves before the reaction. And that
But how is
happens.
that possible when the amygdala fires first, even before consciousness is there? You see, you are also talking about someone,
Correct.
I think it was Mr. Hitendra Gosai or someone who was talking about thought.
Correct.
You see, Fyodor's theory of the thought, which I have discussed about in my classes, I think Sujata ma'am and Anil Goswami and others will remember. And many of you might also know about mentalese, the language of the thought.
Yes.
You see, all these things are happening before consciousness awareness. Totally far before conscious awareness even is there. Amygdala fires much before the reaction happens. The reaction is the result of the amygdala firing. The damage is because of the reaction. Awareness is of the reaction, not of the stimulus or the reaction of the stimulus. It is the reaction of the human body to it. Like you
Yeah.
were
So
about,
So what we were talking about, sir, is in the session
breathing.
we were talking about. Sorry, could you hear me, sir?
When you are talking about breathing irregularities. Breathing irregularity is clearly a human reaction, a body reaction.
Body reaction. Yeah.
It's not an emotional or feeling reaction.
So we catch ourselves at that body reaction itself. So as you correctly said,
It is the
amygdala
body
fires.
reaction.
Correct, correct. So we catch
The
ourselves there
amygdala
itself.
has already fired much before that.
Yes, yes.
Now, once you realize that the breathing reaction has happened, when you realize that your breathing is very fast, is shallow, and there is a palpitation, and that you are angry or you are uneasy, by that time the amygdala has, ages before that, the amygdala has fired and the emotional reaction has taken place.
Yeah, so amygdala firing happened, physiological reaction happened. Then after that, whatever we want to say.
Amygdala firing causes the reaction.
Correct.
Reaction does not cause amygdala firing.
Correct. So what we were discussing.
You are right. Let me get this straight. I'm not trying to contradict you.
No, I'm happy to have this.
I'm just trying to understand, because the first brain to come was the primitive brain, the lizard brain.
Correct. Reptilian brain.
It had only one function: to keep the human being alive. It had no other function. It had to keep you alive. That's all. From there came the limbic brain, what we call the emotional brain, what we call the amygdala being at the center of it.
Correct.
All information goes first to the primitive brain. From there, it is pushed to the limbic brain. Then the limbic brain gives the prefrontal cortex, PFC, the right to analyze, go into the subconscious, match information which is available to it, and then come out with a decision. This is the sequence as far as I know, or
Correct.
what I have learned little bit in cognitive science.
Absolutely right, sir. That's what I also learned.
So totally your amygdala has fired much before any emotional response occurs. So emotional intelligence cannot precede the reaction of the action of the amygdala.
Hello.
The stimulus of the amygdala cannot.
Good evening.
Yes,
Katie. ఎలా ఉంది ఏమైంది
Yes, Suri, you're talking to us?
On telephone.
Okay. So what I personally feel, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but there is absolutely no way we can preempt the amygdala's action. Because that is a neurological response, which is it has been seen that neurological MRI and other tests have shown that the amygdala fires 100 microseconds before it has even observed. Before the response is observed in the MRI, the amygdala has fired 100 microseconds before that. Now just imagine, if even MRI cannot catch the amygdala firing, they catch it only 100 microseconds after that. 100 microseconds at that level is very high. So how do you prevent it from happening when you don't even know when it is going to respond?
We cannot
and
prevent
to whom it is
amygdala.
going to respond.
True. I'll just share a thought, sir, here. I've heard
please.
Absolutely the sequence and the way human brain works, absolutely you're right. That's what I've also learned. But what we were talking about with respect to emotional intelligence here was about after the trigger happened, stimulus, amygdala fires, physiological reaction happens. Till that point, we cannot stop anything. Once the physiological reaction happens, instead of letting it move to meaning making, sense making, and action from our side, we are saying there, after the physiological reaction, catch it there by becoming aware of your physiological reaction, saying that, oh, I'm breathing like this, my jaw is getting clenched, my chest is tightening.
My understanding was wrong. Emotional intelligence has to precede amygdala's reaction. We have to become self-aware of when it is going to be triggered. So effectively, you're also telling what I am between damage and repair.
Yeah, exactly.
The more you bring it closer, the higher is your emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Some people, the damage occurs, they allow it to proceed. Say, let us say 10 on a scale of 1 to 10. If damage to repair is at 10, your emotional intelligence is very weak. If damage to repair is 1, your emotional intelligence is very high. But damage cannot be prevented. Repair period can be shortened. Is that what am I understanding it correctly now?
Yeah. When you say damage, damage with respect to physiological level. But
yeah, see,
correct.
When
Social
the
damage.
physiological level, when it happens,
correct.
You become aware of the physiological damage only after you have created a circumstantial damage.
Absolutely, sir.
A situation. See, you say something, I react. That is when I realize I have reacted. That is when my understanding goes to what's happening to me.
Again, I lost your voice, sir.
You see, we are all, when we
Arun sir, I would recommend you you mute your video, sir.
See, we talk cognitive science, we talk about the 5 senses. These 5 senses are outward looking, not inward looking. When do you become inward looking? Only when the outward looking has created an environment where you are uncomfortable, you start thinking, what is it I have done to warrant this sort of a situation from coming up?
Sir, looks like the network is...
That is when you realize that you are not in control of the situation. Some other time, because I think the network is not okay from here.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mr. Ram, it was a fantastic session.
Thank you,
I wish I were there in Bangalore listening to you, but sitting here with all sorts of disturbance around me, it was it was a bit difficult because you cannot focus on too many things at the same time. The human mind is not built for that.
Yes, sir. But thank you very much for your kind words, and thanks everyone for your engagement, participation.
Wonderful.
I'm glad I could do that. And thank you, sir, for being here in spite of your ill health and travel. So please take care, take rest.
Yeah, but one small request is I think you need to carry forward this discussion that you have initiated on emotional intelligence for leaders.
Sure.
Prescribe some methodology by which people can develop their emotional intelligence.
Yes, sir. I've shared some tools, so I can give some more information on the tools.
You see, one of the most important things about emotional intelligence is it should not remain a concept.
Yeah. It should become a practice, yeah.
That is one of the biggest problems with emotional intelligence. People look at it as a concept. It is not a concept. It is something to be actually internalized and practiced.
True.
So, as a coach and a leader who helps people develop this, I think you can definitely add a lot of value. Please.
Definitely, sir. Thank you so much.
Please feel free to use our platform to help people develop their emotional intelligence, which, as you very rightly pointed out, is far more important than real intelligence. IQ, as people say.
I'll be happy to add value, sir.
Please. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
And I will be posting this video on the group. People can go to it again and see, and then you can go. And also, please give your feedback. That will help Mr. Ram to give much more interesting programs in the coming days. Thank you, friends. And just to remind you, on 31st, we have our next course on emotional value, how to build it. Please do attend it. Thank you.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Has anyone else got anything to say? Okay, then, if nothing, good night.